Write it down. 11/35/10. At the same time, because someone from the government's investigation synced all these videos together, and I shouldn't say all of these, there's not that many, but synced all these videos together. And they both started 11:35/10. You saw what time they showed up. There's got to be body cam from when they were here talking, perceiving things. They both, and that's what you're going to see. And so as Coronado is running at 11:35/10, he's already come all the way around, and he meets Chief Arredondo, and then they start running up. And then they finally run into Mel, because she leaves Adrian's point and goes to the school. She leaves, and Adrian stays there in cover, and he had communicated information. And you're going to hear that a Lieutenant Vargas shows up, and then eventually a Sergeant Page shows up, who Melody describes as Adrian, and she was mistaken about that. And then as Coronado and Arredondo are walking up and running up, there's shots fired. Now you will see, and we anticipate that the government will focus on this. On Coronado's body cam, it's moving, that you see Adrian and Page standing there. Now they're not standing there eating something, or they're standing there talking. Adrian had head cover, Page drives up, there's a realization that he didn't take any fire, so they get out, Sergeant Page gets out, and it's really a moment. You're walking, they're like this, you're going to see them walking towards the school, then they hear shots fired. We can hear Sergeant Coronado say, "Get in the school!" And he said, "Oh shit, get in the school!" And he's yelling and he's out of breath. But there's no evidence that neither one of them heard him. They were so far from him. God bless you. They didn't hear him. And they immediately run into school. They're one of the first ones, if not the first ones, Page and Adrian in the school. And then there's some officers on the other side. And as he said, they take fire. That's what this is going to boil down to. But we anticipate they're going to want you to focus on that literally that moment, that second that you see Adrian and Sergeant Page standing there and then walking towards the school, and then they sprint into the school, and you see Adrian's gun drawn, and he's in the hallway. Goes in again. We also think they're going to focus on time to enter, because Bill talked about that in opening. This 3 minutes and whatever seconds. There's a lot going on in these 3 minutes. We're going to focus and break it down. It's not about just saying there's 3 minutes, because their indictment doesn't cover all 3 minutes. Their indictment covers what they decided to prosecute on is when he made it all the way, that animal made it into the building and then started shooting into the school. Remember? At 11:33:22. That's what it specifically covers, because that's when the assaults begin. Not the 3 minutes and whatever seconds after, as many officers are on the scene at that time and surrounding the school. But we'll talk about that, and we'll cross-examine on that, and you'll hear evidence about that. And then they're going to focus on Melody Flores, and I kind of gave you a heads up about Melody Flores. She's just wrong about a lot of things, and it's traumatic, it's stressful, as Jason said. And I'm not saying this to scare you but we talked about this in jury selection. None of us, you will not leave this trial the same. You just won't. And thank you for taking on this role, but it's just, we're going to talk about the photos in a second. But Melody's wrong about a lot of things. Her times, she's with Adrian, not sure how long, so Adrian's dealing with her at the time, and she's with him. There's shots being fired. She sees bullets or glass breaking. Officers are coming, they're around. You're going to hear radio dispatch. Again, that's going to be really important about what's being communicated to the officers by the dispatcher and then by other officers. This is not in the comfort of a courtroom as one of the Rangers during their investigation would hear say, with 20/20 hindsight and playing Monday morning quarterback. That's from a Texas Ranger, not from us. Okay? Because you're going to hear about interviews. And so they're going to really want you to focus on these photos. And I wish they wouldn't. Not because it hurts us, because that's what they want those photos to do. It's because it hurts those precious people over there. That's why. I shared with you in Board what my family's been through, and so I get it. And so we're going to ask you to really, well, if you have to get emotional, you get emotional. You may. I anticipate you will, depending on what you see. This is emotional. This is an emotional trial. People are going to get emotional. Bill's a good man. He got emotional. But we're going to ask you not to make a decision off emotion. Because that doesn't bring justice to anybody. But I do want you to focus on this. There were multiple agency investigations. Multiple. The DOJ did an investigation. Looked at all the evidence that the government's going to show you. There's not some secret evidence, with all due respect to them, that they're going to show you that the DOJ didn't see. Texas House of Representatives did an investigation. They had a committee. There's not new evidence that's going to be presented to you that they didn't see. This report has a lot of criticism to go around to the school. It really has to do with that door and other things, by the way. Radios that can't work inside, officer not assigned to the school, lockdown procedures that weren't followed, a lot of things, way to communicate, individual locks. The actual classroom, 111, wasn't locked. 111 wasn't locked. You'll hear some evidence of could it even be locked, and did they know about it, and what should have happened. You're also going to hear evidence of the Uvalde police policy from 2015, and whether it's ever been replaced about how officers are supposed to respond. Should they wait for backup cover? Should they communicate? Should they observe? And training is going to matter in this case, and so we're going to ask you to stay focused. You're going to hear a lot of training, but again, totality of the circumstances of what Adrian
Your Honor, I'm
was
going to
experiencing.
object to him talking about evidence. I mean, he's supposed to be doing an opening statement outlining the evidence they're going to present. Right now, he's talking about third-party investigations. Those agencies did not have the full investigation of the Uvalde grand jury, and I think that unless he says that the evidence will show you that they're going to present about these third-party investigations, I think this is doing nothing but misleading the jury as to the evidence that they're going to hear in this case.
I think that's right for cross-examination, Judge.
All right, I'm going to overrule the objection. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, what the lawyers say in opening statement is not to be construed as evidence. They're summarizing what they believe the evidence will show. If the evidence doesn't show that, you can recall that.
Thank you, Judge.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Department of Homeland Security reviewed evidence. City of Uvalde hired Mr. Prado, reviewed evidence. And what you'll see, Adrian fully cooperated every time. He wasn't in a corner hiding. He didn't hold information. He cooperated. He talked. He talked to investigators. He talked to the Rangers. He talked to whoever wanted to talk to him because he wanted to help. We're going to ask you to focus on what evidence will show Adrian did. He took the call. He took the call to go to a school that he wasn't assigned to. He drove to the suspect into the storm, thinking that it was the person that had this gun walking towards the school. He gathered information the way his training told him to do. That's what you're going to see. You're supposed to gather information so you can let other officers know what's going on. He went into a building. After relaying that information, one of the first to go in, as we talked about. He called SWAT because he was asked to call SWAT because those radios couldn't work in the building. Like Jason said, break. I can't break. Meaning I can't dispatch, I can't communicate. So he goes outside to do that. Many officers are on the scene at that time. He stood perimeter because he didn't know if he was watching the east side. He's on the south side. There's the west side. Other officers are inside by this time, and so he stood perimeter at the school. He tried to find out if class was even in session. He didn't even know if class was in session. They needed to find out. You're going to hear that the officers are there kids in the school? They didn't even know. There wasn't certainty that even kids were in the school. Remember, he's coming from a high school, they call it Mexican Park, right? That's the way they call it in Uvalde. And where many of the high schoolers were there. So are these kids even in the school? It's not his school. This is not where he patrols on a regular basis. And you're going to hear evidence he evacuated children. You're going to see it on Coronado's. They're breaking windows and they're getting kids out. As now they're waiting for. You're going to hear Bortec. These are people that have rated shields that can take a high-powered rifle because they were under-resourced. That community was under-resourced. They didn't have a shield, a rated shield for a high-powered. You're going to hear that there's shields for handguns, and then there's shields for high-powered rifles, and they were waiting for that. So he's evacuating children from other classrooms on the other side. And he's checking on Ruiz. You're going to hear about an officer, Ruben Ruiz, who he communicated with. Was tragic part of this. He's talking to his wife, and she's been injured. She passed. And Ruiz wanted to go inside, and so, and I love my wife. I mean, who wouldn't want to just go in there, you know? And they took his gun away from Officer Ruiz. And Adrian kept going back and check on him twice. He's doing all these things at the same time. Got the building plans because they were asking for it, because people didn't understand the layout of this building. He got that for them. And he ultimately got secured the master key because they needed the master key. And then you're going to hear some tactics about how you breach an outward swinging door versus an inward swinging door and what is needed and whether they had the equipment to do that, which the evidence will show they didn't. This is what Adrian did. I mean, the government wants to make it seem like he just sat there, you know. He didn't just sit there. He did what he could with what he knew at the time, and this was fluid and it was a dynamic situation. And we're going to ask you, and I don't know how you do it, and we all have to do it a different way, is to stay focused on this because this is going to be emotional. And because we want justice, right? We talked about that. We talked about that our system works off of you and Lady Justice with a blindfold, and that's what we're going to ask you to do. Because evil is not rectified with injustice. Pure evil visited that precious community. It did. But it's not rectified with injustice. And so at the end of this trial, we're going to come back to you and humbly ask you to consider the law and the facts and properly apply them. And we're going to be requesting and asking for a verdict of not guilty. Thank you for your attention.
Is anybody booking the rules?
Yes, Judge.
All right. You know who your witnesses are. The rule has been invoked, so please instruct them and don't let them come into the courtroom while the testimony is going on.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I see some of you are taking notes, which is great. I'll instruct you at this time. If that assists you in concentrating on the evidence, please do it. But I will tell you, when you go back to deliberate, the bailiff's going to hold your notes, because if there's a conflict as to evidence, we rely on the official court record. But if it helps you in concentrating, please continue to do it. Can I see a words up here real quick on an unrelated matter?
Okay, yeah.